Hello, my friends. Welcome to another Live with Matt Rad. This is the first of what will be the next era of the live streams. This time I'll be doing stuff over on Twitch initially. So follow over there, Live with Matt Rad on Twitch, and then chopping things up, putting them on YouTube, putting them on Instagram, putting them on an audio version on all the podcast platforms like before. And this first one I did last week, I did about 2 hours. This video here is the first 40 minutes or so, which is just a Q&A and kind of getting the lay of the land, talking to the chat, that sort of thing. The second half will be a session breakdown of Ben Ellis' Still Be Friends, so check that out as well. And all the links below. Join the Discord. The Discord is where a lot of the culture has been the last couple of years. It's a really vibrant community over there, really high-level conversation, so join there. And let me know what you guys think. Ultimately, using Twitch will allow me to do session breakdowns and make beats and do things in real time, be able to Zoom and bring people in, be able to have people in the studio and work on stuff together, or doing session breakdowns with the artist or other producer. So let me know what you guys think of this first stream, the two videos that have come out of it. And, you know, as always, I'm just trying to get good information out there. I don't have any sponsors, never going to do any of that. No products, no Patreon, none of that stuff. It's really just to get good information out there. So if you like it, share it with somebody, because I'm not getting paid for it. Just taking the time to do it. So if you guys like it, let me know. If you don't, let me know. I just want to be useful. So yeah, thank you as always for watching, and I hope you enjoy. I guess I'll let people kind of come in here. But I assume a lot of people will watch this after the fact, maybe on YouTube, maybe on the video on demand for Twitch for the next week or so, because I'm not a premium super nitro person yet. But yeah, I think the main question that I've gotten from a few people is, where you been? And, you know, those of you that I've talked to in DMs, yeah, I've given some explanation. I mean, I feel like, you know, starting to talk to John during the pandemic on Instagram Live, super awesome. Built a whole community, did the YouTube page, built a podcast out. Obviously, I declared many times that I was never going to monetize any of this. And part of that was to just keep it pure and keep it something where I can just do what I want and give back and not feel like I have to figure out how to get sponsors or numbers, just make it purely useful. And then part of that also is that I didn't have to be on any kind of schedule. And so when I took long breaks to work on records or go into writing mode or whatever, I would not have to be worrying about Patreon subscribers and all that. To answer someone's questions, are we producing or mixing today? Well, I have a session here, which is from an artist named Ben Ellis, a song called Still Be Friends that came out in the last month or two. He's a new artist from Wales who I've been working a lot with. And so he approved me opening this up and showing you guys stuff. It's a near finished mix session. I sent it off to a great co-mixer, Will Reeves. So he did a lot more to this, but it's a pretty well mixed song. It's pretty close to the finished version. So I can show production, I can show mixing, I can answer questions. I got a list of questions sort of per usual with these, with the old live streams. I get lots of questions. So I have a list of questions which I can just talk through. I can show stuff. The idea here basically is that I feel like we kind of talked about most of the things we needed to talk about, built this amazing Discord community. If you are listening to this or watching this and you have not joined the Discord is incredible. It's a super high level, very collaborative. There's new people. There's super seasoned Grammy winning people talking, collaborating, giving advice. It's an amazing place. And built this community, and there's a lot of people who've been asking when I'm going to do more live things. And I've been spending a lot of time in London, been traveling a lot. So, and I also just wanted to figure out what's the version beyond just streaming on Instagram and chatting. And the obvious thing is pulling up sessions and doing something that's a little more flexible, so I can chat on here, answer questions. I can have people on Zooms. Not going to have anybody on today, just kind of testing things out, but being able to Zoom people in, having people here in the studio, making stuff, kind of like, you know, the tons of streamers who are making stuff in the room. Obviously, Kenny Beats and his thing back in the day. There's all kinds of options here, and I figured Live with Matt Rad is a live thing, and it was live streaming. So let's figure out what the next version is. And looking into all the different streaming platforms of Twitch being the main one, but obviously you can do it on YouTube. You can do it on Kick now. There's all these different things. It seemed like Twitch was the most obvious one. I have to give a shout out to my friend Alex Toomey, who gave me a lot of game about how to set it up. I'm sure I still screwed a bunch of things up, but Alex Toomey was amazing, giving me lots of advice and thoughts, how to set things up, what to do, what not to do. So yeah, we will see how this all goes. So I'm just checking out in the chat here. Have I been deadlifting? I actually have been deadlifting a little bit. High chance. Yeah. Somebody mentioned something about the recording chain. This is a vintage U67. It is being run through an Undertone Audio MPQ1. I don't think there's any EQ on it right now. By the way, how's my voice when I move further away from the mic? I just bumped the mic too. Is it still good? Is it good? Is it bad? I guess I'll listen to this after the fact and get a sense of how it all is sounding. Oh, what's up? Oh, there's a bunch of people in here. And yeah, so it's U67 MPQ1, which is the Undertone Audio preamp. And then it's going through a revision F 1176. If people are familiar with the old 1176s, they went starting in revision A all the way up through, I don't know when they stopped using the letters, but it was after F. And there are particular versions. People prefer particular things. They add little bits of harmonic distortion. The revision F here sounds amazing. When I leave town for long periods, sometimes Kian Reardon, who's been on these streams a bunch, amazing mix engineer and drummer and engineer and producer and other things, but mainly mix engineer, use it on St. Vincent and all these other projects he's working on. But yeah, so it is an expensive vocal chain for Twitch, but that's part of the vibe here, right? Let's see what folks are saying. Oh yeah, you got a little bit of EQ feedback. I'm just gonna leave it here. Let that proximity. Is it good? Is it good when I'm close? Is it good when I'm far? I'm still new to this format, so we'll just see how it goes. But yeah, the idea is basically to get familiar with a more flexible streaming setup and be able to do what I was doing before, which is chat with people, have great conversations about record making. Obviously, I did a lot with John and added a few mixers to that, but had some great conversations with folks like Peter Asher, legendary producer. If you haven't checked out that episode of the live streams, it's a really special one. Talking to my buddy Tyler Johnson a couple of times, had Donut on early on. Lucas Keller, who runs the company I'm managed by, Milk and Honey, had a great conversation with him. So the idea is to continue to have conversations with people, but be able to do things like this here, where you can see a session. I got good advice on the Discord and also did a lot of LLM searching about how to play things and not get copyright strikes and all of that. It seems like Twitch is more flexible with that. But the biggest thing is once it becomes a video on demand, either on YouTube or Twitch or whatever, there's a whole set of content filters. So for this Ben Ellis song here, which I will probably get into on this stream, I'm gonna burp, excuse me, which I will probably get into on this stream. I know his distributor and manager and approved it with them, so they will what's called whitelist it, meaning that my YouTube channel will not get a content DMCA, whatever that is, the strike for copyright. And I hope to do that with more artists in the future. You know, there's a whole lot of sessions I have from Martin Garrix and One Direction and Denzel Curry and Keith Urban and all these things. So I got to continue to learn about what I'm allowed to actually pull up here. But once I figure those things out, I'll break down whatever. Because really the idea here, just like what became the podcast and the live streams going on with John about 5-6 years ago, is basically to just get good information out there. There's a lot of bad information out there. And not that I know everything, but I can at least give some wisdom of the, almost 3 decades of making records that I've done and spending a lot of time in the industry. So I'm happy to answer questions about all kinds of things, from publishing deals to how to use Spectre to how to deal psychologically with being in this industry, which obviously a lot of these topics have been covered on the podcast before. But yeah, this is just kind of the next era of it, and it's for us to figure out together whatever we feel like we want to do. So how are people doing in there? Is there anything in particular? I guess I can go to some questions, or if you guys want to go immediately into a session, I'll kind of rely on the chat to tell me what they want to do. I got a whole list of questions here. You get me talking about one particular thing and I'll go crazy on it. So yeah, the where you been is the main question. Got a couple of versions of that. One of the funny ones also was still compressing. There was a lot that happened early on where John Castelli, the great mix engineer who I did most of the streams with, maybe 2/3 of them, where he declared he does not compress. Now, hopefully over time, people have understood what that means and how much when someone like John is getting a session, he might get a version of what I'll show you guys here, which is super, super processed and super compressed stems. And so when he gets it, he does not need to use a compressor, but of course compression is something that is not just done by compressors, the tool. It can be done by limiters, by saturation, by clip gaining. To compress the dynamic range of a sound is to take the lowest lows and the highest highs and either turn the lows up or turn the highs down. There's various ways to do that. I know John felt a little squeamish a couple years after we did those initial streams where he talked about compression and not compressing, because of course he started using compressors, and it turns out compressors are great tools. Doesn't mean you need to use them or not use them. Important to understand the concepts of it. I think we actually did we do a whole hour on compression? I think we did. So let me see, what other questions? And feel free, chat, if there's things you say, jump into a session, just tell me to do that. It's also fun to start authentically saying, chat, what's up? What's up, chat? It's nice to see familiar faces immediately in here. The John compressor reunion arc was fantastic. It's great. Really, really great. I mean, look, this is one of the reasons that I love talking to John and talking to other folks is we are all very opinionated. I try to relax my opinions, or at least not hold on to them so tight. I have them strongly, but can easily be, or hopefully easily be, have my opinions changed with better information. I guess I heard that the definition of an intellectual is someone who changes their mind with better information. I would like to think I'm that kind of person. And so is John. But one of the things that's so beautiful about John is that he has a very passionate approach to mixing. I might actually try to have him on and talk about how that's changed, because I know that once you get into the Billie Eilishes of the world, and that's both co-mixing with their engineer, Aaron, I think is his name, and also Phineas is quite a stickler for things. He's having to not do all of his initial things, but serve the client and serve the artist. And so I imagine his approach has evolved, as we all should evolve. I mean, like I said, I'm almost 30 years in, because I started when I was very, very young, playing in a little garage band. And I feel like every day I do something, I'm changing. And actually, that's one of the reasons I want to do this, is because I'm sure as soon as I get into my Ableton sessions, just like if you play, it's one of the great things, if you play your songs for someone else that you're working on, that you haven't played for anybody, and they just come in the room and you play them, you immediately hear new things, you see new things. There's something psychological. It's a very well-known effect that and you don't even need to see their reaction or see or hear any feedback. As soon as someone else is in the room, there's something in our human brains that is about like community and music. And as soon as you play something with someone else in the room, you hear all these new things. So I know that when I start opening my Ableton sessions, I'm going to be like, what is that? I know I'm going to get, I'm going to make a lot of adjustments going forward. And it will be nice to get feedback, because there's a lot of real geniuses, again, on that Discord. I see a couple of them here, like Slow Hand and Adam, and a bunch of, there's Slowhand. Go every time you open a session. Yeah, just go live every time I open a session. Honestly, I would love to do that. There's all kinds of privacy and copyright things, but it would be great to do that. And I like the idea of making things a bit more interactive and doing things live. Certainly, I'm not the first one to do this. There's lots of people doing that. There's thousands and thousands. All right, let me see. How's everything sounding? Still good? I'll wait till we'll play some audio here, but is the mic a good volume? Too loud, too soft? I'm going to see if there's any questions on here. It's a great question from Demoloro. I don't know how you say that. Will there ever be a time where digital synths can get to emulating analog synths and do that analog sound? There are two ways to answer that question, or there are two aspects to it. I think digital synths can totally emulate analog synths and analog sound. I think they can 100% do it right now. But the sound of analog synths, it varies from synth to synth, especially as you get older, because you have old components and everything is, I mean, even mass-produced things. Like I got my Juno 6 over there. It sounds like other people's Juno 6s, but the knobs are slightly different, and it wasn't a cheap synth at the time, but it was an affordable counterpart to things like, I think the Prophet 5 was already out, or maybe like the CS80 and the Jupiter, these big fancy synths that were many thousands of dollars even in, I think, the 80s. But the Juno was like a simpler, cheaper one, more affordable. But synth to synth, they're different. And then as a second part to that, it's not just about the sound, it's about the tactile response. Because when we're making music, it really is it's physically moving the air in a room, and it's a bodily experience. I mean, when you think about kind of the history of what music is for human beings, it's a communal thing. It's out in the open. I mean, there wasn't electricity up until the last couple hundred years, and it's been tens of thousands of years, if not longer, of people singing and dancing and drumming, and it's a huge part of how humans cohere as a community. So doing things physically turning knobs as you're playing, physically pressing keys where you're away from a computer screen, it does something different psychologically. I'm certainly not the only one to say this. I know a lot of producers that like analog synths just because it gets them away from looking at a computer screen. You create things differently when you're only using your ears. And even those of us that harp on that all the time, and one of the reasons I talk about use your ears, and that's a common phrase on the Discord, is it's really hard to not use your eyes when you're looking at a screen. When you bring up, Pro Q and you see the waveform and you're like, oh, I'm going to take down those frequencies that I see. What you really should be doing is, what are the frequencies that I hear? Oh, that's where they are. Now let me close my eyes and get it to where I want to hear it correctly. It's a serious thing in modern record making where people are not using their ears as much. It totally makes sense. I'm that way too. But with analog synths, you have the opportunity to only use your ears. And that's a really beautiful thing. It's not the only way to make keyboard sounds and make synth sounds, but it's a really important way. And that's honestly why I have them over there too. I have to physically get up away from the computer, and I'm just turning knobs. And one thing I also like about the Juno 6 specifically, there's a Juno 6, there's a Juno 60, and there's a Juno 106. Those are the vintage versions. They're all slightly different, but the 6 is the original one, which has no MIDI and no presets. So every time I turn a knob, it's literally a brand new sound. And there's something psychologically that's really wonderful about that. So digital synths, amazing. We can go crazy on those on future streams. But analog synths are super fun too. What is DMCA? That's, I think it's DMCA. It could be DCMA. I can't remember. But it's like the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It's basically the thing that gets cited to take down copyrighted material on the internet without paying for it. I think it might have originally come up around Napster. But yeah, the DMCA is like the act or the law that dictates what you're allowed to do with digital copyrights. Okay, let's see. How do you consistently show up every day and be fully available to the work that you need to do every day? Do you have a routine? Would love to hear you vaguely talk about this. I can vaguely talk about this. It's a challenge. I mean, there's a great, again, I'm going to harp on the Discord a lot because that's where this community has gone and it's really rich. But there was a conversation on the Discord recently, I think started by Kian, talking about, I don't know, he was trying to get someone to shuck him some oysters and the guy was having a really bad day. And Kian just realized, like, man, it really is like whatever you have going on in your life, if you bring that into your work, it affects a lot of people. And Kian was with his daughter in a place of a lot of zen and patience. But yeah, it's really challenging. And I actually think, I've said this before, but the challenge with being a music professional is actually not about how do you make good music. That's a part of it, and that's the fun part of it, and that's what will motivate you to keep doing it, hopefully. I mean, again, I've been doing it for a long time, but it's just like, there's new stuff and it's so exciting. And did you hear what that artist did? Oh, there's an excitement in how to do the thing, but to make a living at it, you have to learn how to do all of the things that are kind of like the soft skills, the managing your own ego and managing your schedule and dealing with people and dealing with business and not letting all of those million things get in the way of your ability to make something great. I have a pretty consistent daily morning routine that involves, I journal. This is before I look at my phone every day. I fail at it a lot. So if you start things like this and you fail, don't worry about it. But I start by writing in my journal in the morning. Then I actually read my journal entry from 5 years ago on the same day and then 1 year ago on the same day. So I get this kind of like creative output, haven't looked at my phone, haven't had that stress input. Then I read the stresses I had 5 years ago and 1 year ago, because a lot of my journal entries have what's going on, what's good, what's bad. And it's really clarifying and helps center me and keep me from starting the day with a bunch of stress. Then I meditate. And then, which is just like a 10-minute like Vipassana, or 20-minute these days, actually, the waking up app I use, but any kind of meditation, sitting quietly, just being with your thoughts, focusing on your breath, or TM. Okay. Oh, that just went away for a second. It's back. I don't know what happened. And then I do some kind of musical thing. So I try to get all of that done before I look at emails and deal with, okay, did you deliver this? Oh my God, we're freaking out. Can you send this? Or something from friends or my partner or whatever. I think a big part of showing up consistently is getting yourself centered, because it is a crazy time to just have a telephone. Okay, breaking the NDA speedrun challenge. Yeah, that'd be kind of fun. Okay, let me see what other questions we could get into. Are you guys enjoying the looking at mostly a screen of Ableton and not playing anything? Am I answering questions all right? What did you learn? Oh, how'd you learn production? What was your first program? That's kind of an interesting one. I mean, I learned production just before it all went on computers for cheap. So I learned on a Tascam Portastudio, which, I don't know, can you see it? I don't know if you can, it's on the table back there. Can you see it? That's my Tascam Portastudio from, I don't know, the early 2000s, the late 90s. And I think I bought like an SM57 from Guitar Center and put it in the middle of the room with my band and just tried to get the balance by like, okay, it should probably go closer to the amp that we have the vocals going through and closer to the kick drum. That sounds best. First lesson in engineering, first lesson in mixing, all going to, one thing at a time, then started doing multi-track things. Because it's a 4-track. And then I got ADATs at some point. I think I got an 8-channel, which is digital tape. It's the same thing they recorded the first Alanis Morissette album on, Jagged Little Pill, which is an amazing album. If you've never heard it, icon of the 90s. But it looks like a cassette, like a VHS tape, but it's digital tape. So I was running 8 tracks and like a Mackie mixer and a couple of Shure microphones. And then at some point I got a laptop and I had Cubase. Cubase was my first program. And what I did first is I dumped all of the ADATs, which I think at that point I had 16 channels running, dumped it all on the computer and started like using auto-tune and editing drums and editing timing of things. And then from there, some of those things I recorded when I was a teenager started getting attention from record labels. And then I met Eric Valentine and worked as his assistant for about 5 years. And that was Pro Tools. And then watching him and learning how to calibrate tape machines and cut tape and put up vintage microphones. I mean, he used to have a studio in Hollywood called Barefoot that was, I mean, about as stacked as you want, a pair of the best vintage 67s, an amazing 251, a Ludwig Champagne Sparkle drum kit, the best AC30, a Fender Esquire, like just all kinds of cool stuff, amazing vintage pedals. And I actually lived at that studio for a few months when I first started with him, and just went crazy all the time, learning as much as possible, learning from him how to use Beat Detective, how to edit on Pro Tools. He was still at the time mixing off of tape machines through a console. And then sort of by the end of my tenure, he was dumping the tape machines into Pro Tools and then mixing from Pro Tools. But yeah, that was my journey. So starting off with without computers at the beginning, playing in a band, making beats, producing hip hop, and then kind of working my way up through kind of as high as it goes with Eric Valentine. Let's see what other questions we have here. Morning routine stuff. How do you find time to discover and listen to new music properly? I find it really hard to make time to dig for new music around my own production work. That is also a great question. I go through phases of it. When I'm deep in a project, like this artist, Ben Ellis, who I'll show some of this session, when we're working on stuff, unless he's playing references, I'm not really listening to any other music because I'm full on invested in the project. Sometimes I'll listen for very specific references. Excuse me. If I want to be like, I want to hear, for a while I was obsessed with the vocal sound in old Disney movies. There's a moment that happens in the movie The Sword and the Stone where he's like about to pull, he pulls the sword, and there's this background vocal thing that goes like, and it's like a choir on a sound stage, I'm sure with ribbon mics at the Disney studios. And it's one of those sounds that I heard when I was little, and it stuck with me. And there's a point at which I wanted to hear on a song we did called Animal, which is out. You can check it out, Ben Ellis Animal, where I sang all these background vocals on it, and I wanted that Disney sound. So I'm referencing old things then. But if I'm in the middle of a project, I'm not really listening to anything else. When I get out of a project, that's the time to catch up on things. I'm lucky that I have a lot of friends from multiple generations that I make music with, and people that I don't make music with that are just music fans. I have what VC people would call, venture capital, like Silicon Valley people would call deal flow, which means I have a lot of people sending me stuff. And honestly, sometimes I'll just go on Instagram, and you guys probably see it, and just be like, send me new music. Some people will send me their stuff. Some people will send me things that they like, underground stuff. Sometimes I'll ask for specific stuff, but I make a really conscious effort to do it. I am always trying to find new things, and sometimes it's tiring because all the new stuff sounds the same and da-da-da. And then my brain gets out of that, and it turns out all the new stuff is amazing and different and new, and it's just whatever my perspective is. So, I don't find that the discovery algorithms on Spotify or Apple are particularly great for me. It tends to kind of feed me the same stuff. What I usually want is, I want to hear new cool stuff or old cool stuff that I don't know that's different than what I've been listening to. And the algorithms are not very good at that, since they really are trying to just feed you things that are like what you already like, or they think you like. So it's a real challenge, but it's worth the effort. One of the things I also, as some of you may know, I split my time now between Los Angeles and London. When I'm in LA, this is my house, my bedroom's right there. I walk out of bed, do my morning routine, whatever, or I can, and studio's right here. Or if I'm working super late, I can work right up until I'm about to fall asleep. It's like, all right, my brain's fried. I just go wash up, brush my teeth, and just fall right into bed. In London, I don't have a studio at our place, but so it makes for a very different kind of workflow, which is I get up, do all my stuff, put the backpack on, jump on the bus, jump on the tube, AirPods, and I got like 30 minutes to an hour every day to and from the studio where I'm just listening to stuff. So I take huge advantage of that, and it changes how I am as a writer, as a producer, whatever, one is not better than the other. When I'm here, I have all my tools. I have the guitar I bought in the 8th grade. I have my mother's guitar from the late 60s. I have things that I played my whole life, all of the comforts, all of the things I know, and that's really good. And then when I go to London, I have none of that stuff. I just have my laptop. I take an Apollo and I take a vintage U87 wrapped in bubble wrap, and I take that everywhere, and that's it. So it's our MIDI keyboard, laptop, hard drives, U87. And so every studio is new. The listening environment is different. What instruments do they have? Let's rent something. Let's grab something. Oh, engineer, you can set that up. Cool. Set up those 3 pianos. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's a whole different side of my creative brain that gets unlocked when I'm in either situation. So finding new music, I guess London, I do a lot of that. LA, I have to work really hard. London, because I have like an hour or two every day where I'm just walking around. So I'll just catch up on listening. I'll check out things that people have sent me, that sort of thing. Let's see, anything else? Advice for getting professional synth and keyboard sound that blend well with programmed drums. Let me read that again. Do you have advice for getting professional synth and keyboard sounds that blend well with programmed drums? I'm not sure that I know exactly what that means. I mean, I don't know. There's a ton of famous songs and famous producers that will use like the stock FL or stock Logic or stock Ableton or whatever that blend beautifully with programmed drums. Professional synth and keyboard sounds. Yeah. I mean, I think the answer to how do you get good sounds is do a lot of practice, work with other people who can show you stuff, check out whatever the fuck I'm about to do here, get ideas, and just keep trying, keep pushing yourself. I mean, I've gotten into, there's a few, like the generation above me has discovered where you know, the one side of is like the Rick Beatos of the world, but then there's guys who like he played on Thriller, and here's the actual synth, and here's how they broke it down. Some of those tutorials, the whole like older guy synth and guitar player, and I played on Prince's record, and here's the Michael Jackson thing, and Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis talking about old records. Like there are these guys from back in the day who can teach you about synthesis. There's one guy who, man, I want to find his name. He's got kind of curly hair. He does synth tutorials, all analog synths. He has like a 25-minute thing with his Mini Moog, like his old Mini Moog, just showing you how to make synthesizer sounds. Things like that are a gold mine of information. Even for me, who has a Mini Moog Voyager and has worked with tons of synths and knows my way around all of that, watching those are amazing. So I would suggest that sort of stuff. But how do you make how do you make great synth sounds with I don't know, ask Skrillex. Skrillex is the greatest. Anthony Marinelli. There you go, right in the chat. What a chat. This is great. I love this. Okay, let's see. Thanks for doing this again. Thank you. This deep into your career, how do you evaluate what projects to say yes to? And how has that changed from 5 years ago? Well, 5 years ago was like the middle of the pandemic. That's why I started streaming with John, because it was like, we can't do in-person sessions. Zoom sessions were a bummer. So maybe more like, how's that changed from 10 years ago? How do I evaluate what projects to say yes to? I mean, it's always a combination, it's always a combination of what do I like? What do I think I would do a good job at? Because oftentimes when you're working with artists, I'm not trying to make a record with an artist I love that's like a record they've already made. People ask like, who's your dream artist? And the answer is like, the dream artist is the one who I make the coolest shit with and have fun with. So, would I like to work with, I don't know, Young Thug or Paul McCartney or Kanye or Geese or any of these things where I like their records? Sure. But also I've gotten together with people who I like personally and I like their work, and we just don't make good stuff. So it's a combination of artists I like, people I like I like their music, I like them as people, I like being around them. Do we make really good things? And career strategy stuff. There are projects that even if you're at the top level, and I, talk to people like this all the time. even if you've just had the biggest hits, you still want to do more different, interesting stuff. So how do you make a strategic choice to get to where you want to be? This career is always a combination of all of those things. And I don't know if it's exactly four, but yeah, it's some combination of the day-to-day. Is it pleasant to be around people? Do you make great stuff? Which to me supersedes, do I like the person? Because even if we don't have a great like friendship, if we make amazing stuff in the studio, that's like a whole different kind of friendship and a different language that you can't really get anywhere else, or at least I can't. It's one of the reasons I love doing this, is you just lock in with someone unexpectedly and it's like, oh, this thing happened that I could never calculate. So I'm always looking for that. But I have, my career is kind of odd. It's funny to have people who have watched the streams, and I get comments sometimes like, you're interviewing so-and-so, you got to let them talk. And people don't realize, like, I've been a record maker too. And then some people watch it for me and then ask me about some project, but not realizing I've done a bunch of different genres, a bunch of different roles. So for me, like, I'd say it's about half and half. Like half of my time is writing with artists, sometimes new artists, sometimes seasoned artists, sometimes songwriters to pitch, although not a lot of that these days. And then about half of my life is getting hired to produce, to finish stuff, really. Sometimes do full production, sometimes kind of co-production and mix, sometimes co-production and co-mix. It really depends on the project. I came up playing in bands and producing hip hop and being a producer before I knew what a producer was. So I've always kind of done a bit of everything. And so I just get in where I fit in. And I also don't like doing the same thing over and over. When I had my first, I would say my first like kind of hit was this song Fine By Me by a guy named Andy Grammer back in like 2012, 2011. And I wrote it with him. I produced it. I played everything except for the drums. My friend Stefan played on, Stefan Litrinick, great drummer from Oakland. And I mixed it. And so when I was looking at publishing deals and people were like, oh, so are you a top liner or a track? I was like, I don't know what those things mean. I mean, I understand now, but at the time it was like, I don't know. I was on guitar. He was on piano. We were talking about our girlfriends at the time and he sang one thing and then we switched instruments and I was like, oh, what about this? We were just writing songs and making music. So I've always done a bit of everything. And what that allows me to do, I'm very fortunate in this way, is it allows me to pick projects less on the role and more on, is it something I want to be involved with? That doesn't mean I can only do that and make all the money and whatever. Like I said, you got to make strategic decisions, take risks on new things, find new stuff. But yeah, it's always a combination of a lot of different things. Okay, that's kind of the chess question. What made you switch from E4 to D4? I like the Jobava London. Jobava London is an opening in chess, and this is what everybody wants to hear is what I think about chess. But I will say there's a nice little chess channel on the Discord, and there's some really, really good players. Honestly, I liked the YouTube videos that talked about the Jobava London, and so I started playing it. I'm not good enough to play it really well, but it's I'm about like, I don't know, 1300 or so. I don't think the Jobava London's really useful until you're a bit higher, but I'm gonna keep trying and just get destroyed by 7-year-old Indian kids on chess.com. But you can find me there. I'm Oakland Matt on chess.com. Holler at me. You can beat me in some 5-minute games. All right, what are we feeling? Maybe I should just, I'm already 38 minutes in. Boy, I can yap.